YogiTriathlete just launched a brand new website. We have unrolled Squad. Squad is a virtual group coaching community like no other in the endurance sports space. We've got years of amazing content in there. Yoga for athletes, mobility classes, race course recons. We've got training plans from ultra marathons to Ironman, everything in between. We have a group coaching call every month. We have live streams, live classes, so much stuff in there, and a great community of people who are awake and ready. You will never have to train alone again with this virtual community. 7-day free trial. Get over there right now. Sign up for it. We'll see you in Squad. Namaste.
I am a partner. I've been married for 20 odd years to my high school sweetheart. We went to the prom together. I'm a mom. I have 2 kids, a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they are both very busy and engaged in the world in their own right. I'm a full-time OBGYN at a community hospital in Massachusetts. So I practice full scope. I do surgery, I deliver babies, I do office practice. And then in some other times, I get up really early in the morning and I'm a triathlete. And that's my chocolate cake. That's my treat for myself, to give back to myself when I'm not giving to all the other things in my life.
Welcome back to the Yogi Triathlete podcast, where we shine a light on those who are boldly living a life without limits. Today's guest embodies this spirit on every level. She's a mom of 2, a powerhouse triathlete on Team Yogi Triathlete, and a board-certified OBGYN who leads with heart and hustle. Dr. Kristen Kelly is the real deal. No excuses, just relentless commitment to showing up fully in life, sport, and service. Kristen recently threw down at Ironman 70.3 St. George, the North American Championship, and raced her way to a coveted spot at the 70.3 World Championship. But this wasn't just a race. This was a statement. Kristen and her coach, Beej, set an intention for her to defy limits, to take risks, and to race the race. And she did just that. Whether it's running laps during her kids' soccer practice or rising before the sun to train, Kristen proves that extraordinary is possible when purpose meets action. This conversation is going to be fire, and you're not going to want to miss a second of it. Kristen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good to really connect. And I know we did after St. George, I was just so eager to see how your experience went. So let's start there. Let's start with St. George, and then we'll get into who you are.
Yeah.
But I want to celebrate like what an amazing accomplishment that race was, and then what came out of that race at the end. And so how now you've had about a week, 2 weeks to kind of sit with it. How was that experience overall for you now that you can reflect upon it in St. George?
Yeah. Leaving, I think I wrote this in my race report for myself. Leaving is always hard. But just the moment of getting out the door and flying across the country with a dear friend it was a welcome adventure, that we had been wanting to have for a really long time, for like 20 years. And arriving there and getting settled in, there's all of the pre-race jitters that always happen, and a little bit of imposter syndrome and worry. And then, we've worked on this a bit. Everything just kind of quiets down the closer it gets to the race. And I've done this enough times as well to be able to put that away and put it aside and say, no, I belong here. I'm supposed to be here. I earned this place here. And this is my chance to celebrate all the hard work that I do every day, all the time. So once that kind of blossomed, then I was ready for race morning, and everything was so planned and so rehearsed that there weren't really nerves on race morning. I showed up, I had plenty of time. I think I was in transition by maybe 5 a.m. So I had plenty of time to do what I needed to do. And racing this time, I was super focused on pushing myself, which is something that I've been working on, and not just racing to go medium. But at the same time, I enjoyed every minute of it. It was definitely hard. There's no question, but I enjoyed the hard. It was worth it.
Leading into the race, like you said, you didn't want to race medium. So you wanted to have an experience you hadn't had before, right? You wanted to get across that finish line. It sounds like with nothing left in the tank, like leave it all out there and take some risks in order to do that. What was like the mental prep of that leading up to it? Were there times where you're like, oh, how am I going to know if I'm doing it? Or how am I going to take risks? Or, what if I do just end up racing medium that day? Like, tell me about the mental game leading into it, because it was a level of racing that you hadn't expressed yet in your athletic career.
Yeah, I think that the fear, I'm pretty competitive with myself and achievement oriented. And so the fear of not finishing is, I think, what is holding me back. The fear of like, what if I can't finish? What if I can't do it? What if I go so hard that I can't finish the run? And I think in my heart of hearts, I know that's not true. I know that there's always a little more left in the tank, that I could pull something out. And so what if I go so hard that I have to walk at the end? That's okay, right? Like, it's okay to feel where my limit is. And if I step over it, fine. That's okay. I had an experience. Tomorrow's a new day. I move on. So I think in training, there were a few run sessions where I was like, dear Lord, this is really hard. Like, what is happening? And it was good to be at my limit and to just know, like, all right, this is really uncomfortable, but I had an interval and then I had a break and I was fine. And look, I did another interval. So I think just recognizing that finding that edge is like, it's okay to push that limit.
Yeah, we had a conversation too going into this season, and I remember we were kind of flushing out, like, you really wanted to race, like you really felt like you wanted to race, but you didn't quite know how it was going to look. And I think we talked about, like, am I going to throw up? Am I going to pass out? Like, how does this all like come together? And I think when you make that decision and you have that conversation, that honest conversation, like, because you're exposing yourself a little bit, you're like, I like to finish races. I don't like to, I don't want to finish this thing. You sort of open yourself up to so many possibilities, so many moments where if you can connect your goal and what you're doing in training, like really connect it. And I think that's one of many things that you do really well, is stay present and mindful in the session. You give yourself a chance for that next interval. Mm-hmm. You don't do 2 intervals, fail at the second one and say, well, I guess that's it. You continue to go and see what's next, rest, go back. So that connection, I think, is really important. And I think I'm extremely excited that you leaned into that possibility for St. George, which is a really challenging course. It's not an easy one. It's one of the OGs, like, legit. So you had to do the necessary training. We'll get into the training bit of it. But I wanted to just celebrate that when an athlete wants something, like desires something, have that conversation and then match up what needs to happen in order to execute that. And it means hard interval sessions on the treadmill and on the trainer, and also the communication that says, hey, that, I need to back off. I need a little bit of, rest here. And that's something that we worked on.
Yeah, that's definitely something for me to work on, is like knowing when to take rest and not push through, because the end, it's justified. It's hard to see that in the moment, but it's totally justified. And I think in terms of the race too, there's a lot of be here now, right? Like, be in this moment right now. Can I go a little harder right now? Yes. Okay, cool. Find that other spot. And we talked about that on the run and on the bike, like spin up the hills, but on the flat section, push just a little bit, see what happens. Is that faster pace good? Great. Can you push a little bit more? And so just paying attention to every moment and staying focused for the whole race, like that was really cool to connect with.
Do you remember a moment in your training, like a specific experience leading up to this race that, like, you look back on and you were like, oh yeah, that was a key sash, or that was the moment where I knew I was stepping into this next level?
There were a bunch of bricks, not one in particular, but there were a bunch of bricks that had really fast runs or fast intervals off of a really long ride. And I remember just being in the middle of the run, usually at like 4 a.m. in my basement. And it's dark. and I'm by myself and I'm doing some like crazy hard run. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'm in it. Like, this is not a brick where I'm just jogging off the bike and like ambling around. This is like business. So those runs in particular, I was like, oh, this is new. All right, fine, cool. Let's go.
Sounds like she earned the spicy workouts.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. And let's move into that. Like, who are you? Like, who are you? Who are you? Kristen, who are you?
That's a really hard question to answer in 30 seconds.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you're managing, what your job is, what a day in the life is like. Share with us.
Yeah. So I am a partner. I've been married for 20 odd years to my high school sweetheart. We went to the prom together, which is kind of amusing. I'm a mom. I have 2 kids, a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they are both very busy and engaged in the world in their own right. So there's those things. I'm a full-time OBGYN at a community hospital in Massachusetts. So I practice full scope. I do surgery, I deliver babies, I do office practice, and I have an administrative role in our practice as well. So I do some meetings and such for that. And then in some other times, I get up really early in the morning and I'm a triathlete. And that's my chocolate cake. That's my treat for myself, to give back to myself when I'm not giving to all the other things in my life.
So what is a typical, take us through a day of your training and your life and your being a partner and a mom and a physician?
Yeah. I get up at 4:00 in the morning pretty routinely, and I have some meditation time and tea. And that is like every weekday morning without fail. That is planned. And then while everybody in my house is sleeping, I do my workout. So usually an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. And then as I'm finishing that, it's time for everybody else to get up. So I make the rounds and wake the people up. And then we all get ready and head off to our respective days. And then my husband does the after school dad Uber. And so he does a lot of driving to take kids to all of their activities. And then I usually finish work, if it's an office day, around 5. So I come home and we meet up, and either there's more driving for more soccer practices and swim practices, or we meet up together. And whenever we're home, all 4 of us, we have dinner together. Even if it's short because everybody's tired, even if it's 15 minutes, we just try to connect over our kitchen island, and then everybody goes to bed. And my preferred bedtime is 8:30, but my 12-year-old is shifting his clock, and so is staying up later and later. So our family is navigating how to navigate an adolescent who wants to stay up late and parents who want to go to bed.
How do you navigate that? You're like,
I'm out.
I'm sticking.
Yeah, he needs to eat a lot, and it takes him a while to get in all the food that he needs. So we have dinner. And then there's cleanup, and usually he hangs out in the kitchen and eats some more while we all get ready for bed. And he has started tucking me in bed at 8:30, and then he'll go into his room and he reads for an hour or so. And then I'm assuming he turns his light out, but I can't stay awake to make sure. So we've established some boundaries around how that works.
How did you create this? How did you create the morning routine? How long have you been doing it? And do you remember not waking up at 4 and maybe at one time, hitting snooze? How did this come about, this routine?
Yeah. I think it started after my second kiddo was born. My first kiddo was born when I was a resident, in medical training. And so then your schedule isn't your own. And so life was different then. And then when that finished and my daughter was born, I've always been a morning person, and usually one of them would be up because they wanted to eat or they wanted a story. So that's just when our day started. And I am very much a morning person. It's my favorite time of day. So as they got older and started sleeping later, then I would sneak out and go across the street to the gym. And that was my morning time. And then I'd get a text when somebody was up that they needed to eat. And then I would come home. But it is just morphed kind of over the last 10 years into me getting up early enough that I can have quiet time and exercise time. So my amount of time for myself has gotten larger as their needs have gotten less.
When did you start meditating? What does your morning meditation look like?
Yeah, that's a BJ thing wholeheartedly. I was definitely not a meditator before I started working with BJ. I tried a few times and either fell asleep or was like, yep, totally. Or I was like listening to something. I listened to one meditation and it was like, imagine you're a rock and you're at the bottom of a lake. And then I, in my head, started arguing with the meditation person. Was like, I'm not at the bottom of the lake. I want to swim in the lake. Why do I have to be a rock in the bottom of the lake? So I tried, it didn't work. And I think the introduction of it in 5-minute increments, 5 minutes it's a tiny, minute part of your day. And so the getting up and just instead of doom scrolling on my phone with my tea, it was like, just for 5 minutes, just be and then that has lengthened to now it's 15 minutes, which still is a short amount of time, in the grand scheme of things. But just having someone hold me accountable to taking that space created a habit. So it's consistency, right? And recognizing that it's not 5 minutes lost. Like the 5 minutes that I gave up, I would have been reading the news on my phone. So it's a welcome exchange.
Yeah. What do you think it's offered you as in just the different roles that you play in your life overall? Like how I would sum that up is, how has that practice informed the way you move through life?
I think I've used it at other times during my day just to take a breath and sit for a minute. And so I am not often still. It's not my general nature. And so it has helped me be still, which is something I think that I can work on. And I think in being still, it helps me move faster, which sounds like a total contradiction, but it helps kind of sharpen those edges and soften things at the same time.
Do you feel like you've lost your competitive edge because of meditation?
Totally not. Not at all. If anything, it helps me stay focused, specifically in racing, right? Like I can be focused at work or I can be focused when I'm parenting, but in racing, I'd be like talking to other people or goofing around, which was good. That had its place in a time in my life, but in wanting to race more races, being able to be focused for the duration of the race and think about what I'm physically asking myself to do is a change. That's new.
Mm-hmm.
And how does this work with your partner? I know Jess and I we're opposites. Like she would always like leave a book by my nightstand to start reading about, meditation and yoga. And
that did not work.
So it was like I had to find it at my own time. How does that work with you and your family dynamic?
Yeah. My husband's a therapist. And so he's a Pisces and I'm a Leo. So just enough said right there. He already has meditation in his life and is definitely a calmer force to my intensity. And that most times serves us really well and we can complement each other. He definitely has talked to me about meditating in the past. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And we have learned in the duration of our relationship, like it doesn't work when we're each other's direct teachers. We don't roll that way. So, he would like go up and do his mindfulness before I started doing all of this. And I respected it, but I was like, that's your thing. It's fine. You do that. So now I think when he realized what I was doing, he was like, oh, you do that now. Oh, all right, cool. Good on you. All right. And then just let it be.
Yeah. A nice subtle response.
Yep.
Because you don't want to be like, yes. Because then it's,
Then it's another thing. Yeah.
Well, then you're kind of like, well, no, this is my, like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that doesn't work
standoffish.
either.
No.
No.
Yeah. What do your kids? How do your kids perceive you as mom, as triathlete?
I think they think I'm crazy in a good way. Like in a very loving, endearing way. So I'm pretty sure, I don't know, it would be interesting to ask them, but I'm pretty sure they think that I'm reliable. They know that I'm timely, and they know that I'm very organized. And so that is how they see me. And at the same time, our whole family, we're very like cuddly people. And so even at 12 and 9, they still want lots of hugs. They still like to sit on my lap and like have a book read to them. So they see both sides of me. They see the super focused side of me, and then they see the side of me that can like hang with them and be a little bit softer and talk about like, how was your day and what's going on in your life. So they can see both of those things. The exercise specifically, I think they think it's pretty cool. I think it sets a good example for them. Just to see me consistently getting up in the morning. When they were smaller, they'd come downstairs. They'd get up and come downstairs to the basement and make like pillow forts while I was on the treadmill, like bring books and hang out. So that's what they know. And so we've just adapted. It's not always easy, but for the most part it works.
You said you and your friend had been wanting to take a trip together for like 20 years. And so it's, as somebody who encourages people to take big trips and things like that as a part of what I do, I know I see so many times, I've even done this myself, how you're just kind of like, you're always like, well, maybe next year we'll do it, or maybe the next year we'll do it, or you can kind of like think yourself out of doing it. So after so long and taking that trip and having the experience, how does that shift a perspective forward? Do you think it will be another 20 years, or do you think it did it inspire you to, I don't know, spread your wings a little bit?
That was there's been more of that. I took a trip with another dear friend in January that did not involve racing. And I took some time away with my mom in April that also did not involve racing. So I think I, as a human being and as a parent and a spouse, am learning to spread my wings. And that's been something that I've grappled with is how and when to step away. And that's a super personal thing for each person within a family system. And what feels okay? Is it okay for me to be gone? How does that sit with my kids and my partner? So that is still very much a work in progress. But finding a place where I can step away and knowing that like it's okay and it's all going to be fine when I get back. So work in progress.
Yeah, it's such a work in progress, and being so organized and regimented. I know we've had conversations before you go on travel, like, is this a good idea? Like, St. George is like 3 weeks after I get back from Paris, or your adventure. And so like, how does that work? You're to the point that Jess is making, like you're opening yourself to that. Like you've welcomed that, like you've asked for perspective, and I share perspective. And 99.9% of the time you're on board and you're like, okay, well, I guess I just trust that I will be ready for the race. But it also means stepping away. It's that very thing which motivated and dedicated athletes are so good at, which is like getting the workout done every day. Like, this is the routine. It's comfortable. I know what to do. And then you step away, you go on vacation or you go travel, and you're out of that routine. And most often it's like, I should be enjoying what I'm doing here, but I'm also thinking about like the workouts that I'm missing. And I'm sure there's a level of that probably higher in those high achievers because we want to excel and do our best. But it's also like bridging that gap to make a relationship with it, to know that you can have it all. You can have the travel, you can have the fun and the laughs, and you can train a little bit while you're away or not at all, and then return and still have a magnificent performance because of the things that you've done to set yourself up in the months, the years, decades before then. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, wholeheartedly. I think when we talked about so I was in Paris in April with my mom a month before St. George. And when I signed up for it, I was like, I don't know. This sounds like a terrible idea. Like that's right when I should be like totally ramping up. And it's such an important perspective to recognize that, like, yes, you can do all of these things. And by showing up for yourself consistently, little blips in the system, like going on a trip, like be there now, right? Enjoy that, because all of that other showing up means it's going to be there for you when you get back. And so I think that is super important. I did not have that perspective when I was training for my first full Ironman. And there was a lot, like it's important, but at the same time, there was a lot of like dragging my bike around, and we'd go for away for the weekend. And like the bike trainer went in the car, and like I'd get up and I think you can do a little bit less of that and still perform and maybe enjoy life a little bit more. And so at the end of the day, I'm an age grouper. I am doing this for fun. This brings me joy. And so if it's crashing down the rest of my life, then I've lost perspective. I've lost that joyfulness about it. So it's important to be accountable and to show up and also live your life.
I think you nailed it when you said, when you're consistently showing up, when you have the consistency in your training, you can afford to step away and then come back and really kind of pick up where you left off. When I travel and I do these trips, I do not swim, bike, or run unless, it's a part of the trip. And I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about my training. I was in Patagonia for 17 days and then came home, and 4 days later was on a flight to go run an ultra marathon. And I was just active because the adventures are active. And I find a new sense of joy in that, and still moving the body and being strong because of the consistency in the training. But without the consistency, you can't afford to take that. You do need to drag the bike, or you do need to, put the trip off. You really do. But if you can just be consistent, you can just be consistent and maintain that level of fitness, you can pop in and out and be able to step away, really step away from life. And I want to get your perspective on that. Like, you went to Paris with your mom, you took this trip with your friend. You said you took another trip back in January. How important is it, just for renewal, for life perspective, to step away from life? I know there's trips where you go with your family and all of that, but when you pull yourself out of that microorganism of the family and have an experience on your own, what has that given you? What is your perspective on that?
Yeah, that's evolving as my kids get older. I think when they're teeny tiny, like they're physically, like they physically needed my body to be adjacent to them. And so there was that, but being away helps me remember who I am as an autonomous person. And my perspective on parenting, like my goal is to raise them to be functional people that leave. Right? That's like, they're going to grow up and they need to have their own worlds and their own interests and their own things. And so they're going to go away. And so when that happens, I'm still me, I'm still here. And so I need to fuel myself a little bit so that when that bifurcation happens, I'm okay. I'm still here for myself. And it's hard seeing them grow up and not need me as much or need me in different ways. It is hard, it like pulls at the heartstrings a little bit, but at the same time, my husband and I can celebrate that. Like, oh yeah, we're doing a good job. Like they can do that by themselves now. They don't need us to be there all the time. So celebrating that growth and recognizing that we can take that as like, oh, this is a chance for us to give back to ourselves. It's finding that space.
Yeah. And you want them out of the house eventually.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. They can come back and visit, but yeah, right. Eventually they're going to go and have they can have their own adventures, and we'll go back to having adventures like we did when we were in college.
Well, I want to shift a little bit towards this World Championship qualification. Beach, from your perspective, like, was this something that was on the table? Did you guys talk about it? Was it a plan?
I don't think we really talked about it, but I knew in my mind it was always a possibility. And that's why I waited until you finished and sent you that message. And it was like, you probably want to go to awards and roll down, which I know what's involved in that. And I kind of
left that out.
It's the least efficient process possible. Like no food, no water.
And as you're messaging me, it's all the things. It's like, which order are they going to do it in? Why are the guys taking so long? Like, it's all the things that are, this is what happened. Mm-hmm. But I knew it was absolutely possible for you based on your training and consistency and what you've done and where your mindset was going into this race, knowing you were super calm, but you were ready. You were ready to have an experience where you kind of like found the edge. And I think another component of it was not as a detriment, but you were alone. You had your friend there and that was it. Like you're in a place where you don't know anybody except your friend. And so that sort of opens up like, I don't have to be anywhere, although you love to, see your family on the course. But you didn't have that commitment level, which again, focuses back on an experience for you, Kristen, like, I can feed me and be here and just experience this thing fully and expansively by myself. This is pretty cool. I knew that all this was aligning in my mind. I knew that this was a possibility, but what did you think? Did you even think about it?
I thought about it before I left. Somebody who swims at the pool asked me about qualifying. So just asked if that was a possibility. And I was like, I don't know. I wasn't really thinking about it. And to be totally honest, it's another one of those, like, I don't want to DNF. And so I don't want to set a goal of qualifying and then not do it. So it's in some ways easier to not have that as a goal because then I can't fail. So I thought about it. It's also later in the season. So roll down is going deeper. And so I didn't have to win the race to get a slot. And it occurred to me during the race, I was like, I wonder where I am around other people. I have no idea who I'm racing against. I don't know who any of these people are. I have no clue. I'm just going to race my race and put it down and see what happens. And so then there was more than one text. You were kind of excited.
I was on the bike too. I'm like,
there was more than one text.
And so I think I kind of knew how long or what was coming, but I did not really know what was coming at roll down. And so my friend was up for anything. And I was like, maybe we should just go check this out. And she was like, well, sure. Of course we should go. She's never been to an Ironman event. This was new to her. And so she was just soaking it all in. And so that was like one more thing. She was like, of course we should go. So we went back to our Airbnb and got cleaned up and had a snack and then got there right after 4 because I did not know how long the award ceremony was going to take. And then like an hour later, the roll down starts and it was long and drawn out. And so then we hit up against our dinner reservation time and I'm like digesting myself. And so I sent her to the restaurant because it just kept getting closer to the point where I was like, I can't leave. I can't leave now. I've been sitting here for 2.5 hours. I cannot leave. And you're texting me like, just be calm. And I'm like, my calm's all done. I've been calm all day. I just want to eat. The slot that I had was one of the women for try slots. And so they had to go through the whole entire thing first. And then they went back to do the women for try slots. So those, like, they went really quick. The women were very organized and they hit each age group and they were up and down and it was over, but it was still like just a long process. But by the time I got there and when they did my age group for the regular slots and it went close, it was like, unless I think at that point I had a slot, I just had to sit there. So, and you were texting, you were like, just sit down, just calm down.
Just stay, just sit
and stay.
Yeah, I mean, you were top 20 in your age group. You ended up being 17th on the day. And so, yeah, especially with the women in tri spots, you were destined to get one for sure. But yeah, I've been to so many of those awards and roll down sessions with BJ. And it's an event. It's an endurance event in and of itself.
And so many of them without coming away with anything.
Oh.
It was like constantly showing up, putting yourself in the energy.
Yeah, for like over a decade
for a while.
of doing that.
And Ironman's the day after, so we would have to like
yeah, well, at least you'd have like rest.
Oh yeah, that's true.
In between. But I think for people listening who, want to get a world spot, whether it's Kona, whether it's 70.3 is something that the reason why we went to so many of those, even when you were like, 95th place, was because if you want to go to a championship, then show up to the awards and the roll down, because you're getting into that energy. You're literally training your subconscious mind to be like, yes, like I'm going to be here. It's almost like a visualization, right? But you're actually doing it. Get into that energy. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Get into that energy. Don't just give up on yourself and say, well, I was 47th. I'm not going to go. Go and celebrate other people who are reaching the goal that you desire.
Yeah.
And then eventually, if you keep moving forward, you'll get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Takes time.
Now there's just like world championship stuff all over the house now.
So Kristen, 17th place. So and when we're talking about your race, so 8th fastest swim, 27th bike, and then 10th fastest run. Like you just held strong and steady, like the entire day. I kept the tracker open. I was screaming to you, like from the basement on the bike, like Kristen's, and I would go back downstairs and get back on the bike. Tell us,
in case I didn't
all
hear
this
you.
is going on.
In case I didn't hear you screaming.
Sorry.
This is. I love this stuff. Tell us about your day. Like start with the swim, like being calm or excited. Like how did that swim go? And then we'll go through your race.
Yeah. The start was calm. The last race that I did was Augusta last year, and I was also by myself, and I didn't leave enough time, and I was like super flustered and really annoyed. And then this time there was plenty of time. I like ambled over to the start corral, and it was calm. I had been at the swim site the day before. I knew like it wasn't new. It wasn't unfamiliar. The water was beautiful. It's this like turquoise blue reservoir and red rocks all over the place. And the sun came up, and it was just magic. So beautiful. I did after Augusta, like when you get in the water, your heart rate shoots up, and I wanted to mitigate that a little. So I did some jumping jacks without my arms, so I didn't hit anyone, just to get my heart rate to a place where it was kind of medium, so that when I got in the water, there was no surprise, and I just swam. And the swim went by so fast and just felt so smooth and really effortless. And I mean that. Like the people around me didn't bother me. I found some feet to ride a little bit. Every time I looked up, I was at the next buoy, and then it was time to turn, and then it was time to head back, and then I was done. And a part of me wanted it to be longer because it was such a nice swim. I was like, I could keep going. I could do this some more. I was like, no, get out. So it's like unmemorable in the sense that there weren't challenges this time around. It just flowed. And I spent a lot of time in the pool after I did an ultra in September. And then, you had me in the pool 3 days a week for a really long time, which was my body was happy about, but my swimming got a lot faster. So that was probably part of it. And I was ready. It was great. I love swimming.
If you want to get better at swimming, you have to get to the pool.
Go to the pool.
You have to swim.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. There is a little bit of the mental, and I think this comes from the meditation. There's a lot of nervous talk and a lot of like anxious people at the start, and just being able to block that out without being an unkind person is, I think, a skill in and of itself. And so being surrounded by people who are ready to go in their wetsuits and everyone's like doing their thing and like dumping water on themselves and like breathing hard and talking smack and just ignoring all of that and experiencing it at the same time also really helps to just enter the water in a calm way. You hear all those beeps that send athletes off and you just like let go, just swim.
Yeah, love that. All right, tell us about your ride.
Yeah. So transition, fine, no problems. The ride, we drove it the day before in a couple of pieces, and that is also really helpful. I think being able to not have the race course be brand new on race day makes a huge, huge difference. So I kind of knew where I was and where I was heading. The roads were great. The pavement is a lot better than in New England. So there's no potholes or frost heaves or things to navigate. And the first bit is some out and backs on flats, and the sun is still getting higher. And so, all the red sandstone is glowing. And then you head out and there's some highway portions. And there's one part where you're riding back to St. George. And EJ, we talked about this. There's like cars, there's oncoming traffic on both sides of you, and you're in the middle. And that was a little unnerving. And I was just like, just get an arrow and just don't look at the cars. Like, it's fine. They're there. They're going very fast and it's all fine. Then there's hills. There's lots of hills. None of them felt particularly steep. They were all just short, like find a good gear and spin up. And so instead of spinning gently, I just tried to spin a little bit harder. I tried to stay arrow. I practiced a lot during the winter on my trainer, riding on the trainer in arrow so that I was more comfortable staying down there for extended periods of time instead of popping up to like look around and see what was going on. So I did that more. And I felt safer pushing it on downhills because the pavement felt trustworthy. And so at home, you never know what kind of explosion is going to happen. So I'm always like up looking around so I don't crash. And then Snow Canyon. And we drove up Snow Canyon the first day. We went for a walk in there and drove up it. And I live in a really hilly place. So I do hills when I'm outside, and I just put my head down, said, okay, find a gear and just go. It's 4 miles, like just ride. And I did. I got to the top and that was it. And it was just mental. It was like, this is self-limited. This is 4 miles out of 50 and it's a hill. It was challenging, but it was just great. I got to the top and was super psyched and grabbed water and dumped it on myself and then just kept going. So that I loved that climb. It was challenging, but really like fun. And then there's a huge rip back to town. That was fast. It was really fast. And then you're in town and then off you go on the run. The run was hot. I think by that point it was 95 degrees. And so there's that. I think I really do well running in the heat. And so I just made sure to stay cool. Lots of like ice in my hat, ice down my back. I was carrying some super concentrated salt liquid that I sipped on and then had water and oranges, like my usual things. And it's 2 laps. So you do 1 lap and you drop back into town and get to see lots of happy people. And then you head out again. And I just committed to myself to just keep going. It's like, just don't stop. There, like no stopping. I walked through the aid stations to like make sure I got all the things that I needed, but otherwise a hill meant running and a downhill meant running faster. And so I just, no stopping, just keep going. And then it was done. That was it.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was
fine. You were ready. Yeah. You were trained mentally, physically, you were ready to go and you executed.
Yeah.
It's very not complicated.
How do you feel the training matched the course profile? Like, do you feel like it was appropriate in terms of, the low cadence, the big hill work, the running the treadmill at 4% and 6%? Like, how did you feel it equated to to race day?
Yeah, spot on. This was the first race that I've done where I trained totally on the trainer because it was winter here. And so in my head, I was like, oh, how's this going to work? I think it actually worked better because when I go for a ride outside at home, I don't have there's no feedback or no metrics of like, this is your target or this is what you need to accomplish. So having scripted workouts that mimicked hill climbs, I think I could push harder because there was a computer telling me to push harder in a workout that I was trying. And that's different than there is still lots of value in going out for a ride on Sunday afternoon. Like I'm going to go ride 50 miles and ride up to the hill towns. So that worked really well.
You kept mentioning this. You had Lake Placid in your bones. So you did, like having that Placid in your yeah.
Yeah.
So Snow Canyon wasn't that.
No, it didn't feel it. We talked about it and comparing it to Lake Placid, and I have hills that I do at home that are similar. And so it again, like it's just a thing. You just have to commit to it and just do it. And it's going to end and then you keep going. And so I think just sitting with that discomfort and being committed to continuing to move and dig a little deeper, it feels good.
Do you have just one last thing, do you have any commentary in the mind at all during the race that was like, oh, this is so hard? No, it's not hard. I'm totally fit to do this, or I don't want to be doing this right now. I have to be doing this right now. There's no place else I'd rather be. Did you have any commentary that you were negotiating?
I think it probably tried to crop up. And at this point, a week out, I can't remember it because I think I probably shut it down pretty quick. The bike, it went quickly. Maybe on the run a little bit. If I took a moment to recognize how hot it was, like, oh, it's hot. Maybe I should not be so hot. And then it's like, no, just you can't control the hot. Just put more ice on yourself and keep going. But I think that self-doubt, I've been at this for long enough that the self-doubt, I feel like I can quash it pretty quickly. And sometimes it's coming from like, do you need to eat? Do you need to drink something? And so what do you need to do to take care of your basic needs in order to let your mind, like to have control over your mind again? Because if your fuel is off or you're getting a cramp, like then everything can fall apart and you can lose that focus. And so making sure that all of those other things are dialed in allows you to just be present and to be on it.
What did you use for nutrition?
I use honey stinger blocks. Those are my chew of choice. And I eat pretzels, which is a little awkward because they're really dry. But I like them. And then I use Carbo Rocket for biking calories and Scratch. So Carbo Rocket's pretty calorically dense and Scratch does not have a lot of calories. So I take in cubes and pretzels when I'm drinking Scratch and I alternate bottles. And then on the run, BJ had me use LMNT, which is super salty. And that I've used it before more dilute, but I made it really concentrated this time around. It was just a sip. That was not a big drink.
Yeah. It's intense. For whatever reason, we had a packet of that hanging around, and so I threw it in my bottle the other day.
You need that stuff in a hot, and we knew it was going to be hot like 2 weeks out.
Yeah.
I think we were already talking that it was going to be hot. So sodium, and we had that discussion. You've got to get in the electrolytes. That is like a must. Otherwise, and especially in a hilly course, you're going to cramp.
Yeah,
your muscles will cramp.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we saw that on the course. People were super kind, and people who are struggling with cramping. Like I heard on more than one occasion, somebody saying like, oh, do you want some salt? Do you need salt? I have salt. Like here, take this. So I think just being mindful of the conditions that you're racing in and how you have to adapt based on what nature throws at you.
And they don't hand out salt. That's not a thing that Ironman has at the aid stations. I mean, there's some sodium in the cola and the mortal hydration, but they don't hand out like
Salt tabs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to be prepared.
You got to be ready. Yeah.
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 I was just thinking of this, the ultra I did up in Marin, they had this huge bowl that was just salt. Like, and then they had like boiled potatoes, and you would just dip the boiled potato in the bowl of salt. I loved it. It was like, so like everyone's just dipping their potatoes in, everybody's dirty. It's the best. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's interesting that they don't do that. All right. What's one word to sum up your experience at St. George and your world's qualification?
Clarity.
Love that. Mm-hmm. It makes me think of, I had a session this morning. I have an early morning session on Wednesday mornings with a client, and we do yoga or mindset or whatever it is that she needs at this point. And today there was just a lot of confusion at the beginning she came in with a lot of confusion at 6 a.m., a lot of confusion, single mom. And I said, well, we're not going to talk about this because that's, we're just like chewing on confusion. So let's get into experience. We did like a little bit of flow. We did some meditation, and what the theme of it was, calm is not the result of clarity. It's the beginning of clarity. And when you talked about how you went into this race calm, and now you've come out of it with clarity, and that just kind of hit deeper today when I thought about that. I think when we are, we're trying to feel relief by getting clear, but there's a step before that just leads naturally to getting clear, which is calm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
All right, what's next? You guys are gonna be racing together in a couple weeks. Yeah. You might be on the podcast again real quick.
Turn that around. Yeah. Ironman Western Mass 70.3 is coming up in like 2 weeks. Yeah. And then family vacation. So we're off to go hiking.
Oh, nice. Where are you going? Like somewhere
far. We're going to Chamonix.
I was going to say, are you going somewhere? Oh, that's amazing. That's incredible.
Yeah. We've gone far away for the past 2 summers, and we go away for 2 weeks, and I like turn off all my work, all my things, and step away from all of it. And we have a really good time as a family. There's a lot of giggling and a lot of the like standards that we hold ourselves to at home fall apart. And there's lots of like late night silliness and hiking in the woods, or not really woods because the mountains are bigger, but it's good. We like to connect that way.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
All right, Beach, let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
What do you got?
I just thank you for being a part of our community. I think you're a shining example of what it takes to see all the things in your life that maybe you want to like change or gravitate to, and you're finding a way to do it. And that's one thing I know for certain is in your wheelhouse, is finding a way. Like there's like nothing that I've given you or shared in your training plan or around it that we've been like, no, this isn't going to happen. You found a way every time, like running the soccer field, as we said in the beginning, and adjusting your schedule and communicating, well, Sunday's, family day. So I need to commit myself. And I think that's an example, not only of finding a way, but asking for what you have, like the time that you have available, and understanding like you're putting a puzzle together constantly to make things work with all your family and your community. So I'm just really grateful that you're here, and I am super stoked to actually be on a race course with you in Massachusetts. Yeah.
It's gonna be awesome. It'll be a little cooler, hopefully, than Utah.
Yeah, it'll be cooler.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
For sure.
This is your hometown race.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You've never done it?
No, I didn't want to do my hometown race. So I was like, I could just go do that. I don't have to like pay the race fee to go and do that. I could just go do that. But it fit with the puzzle. And so here we are.
Nice. And you got Brendan and Chris are doing it too? Oh, that's a nice A team. Awesome.
And Nicolette's going to come spectate.
Cool.
My family's going to come up.
Awesome.
Spectate. Oh boy.
That's amazing.
That's another podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, that's another podcast. That's a different. Yeah. Thank you so much. It was, it's so funny, Kristen, like you've been on the team, I don't even know, a couple years now. And like, I, hear about we check in about the athletes and everything. And it was funny when I hopped on today, I felt like I've known you for so long, but this is actually the first time like we're like talking. I mean, maybe I've sent you an email about things, but it's just so nice to spend this time with you. And I hope that we get to do it again in real life and not too far into the future.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's amazing.
Yeah.